Hello, my subscribers. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for all the subscribers I have gotten over the weekend. I am very grateful that you have actually hit the subscribe button. I have 400 views on a video, and so if I could just get half of those people to subscribe, it would be great. But that's not what we're here for. I'm not here for subscribers. I want to let you guys know that Dr. Phil had a podcast, The Devil Beside Me. And I watched it last night and I took notes on everything he said. I tried to use different wording and add some of my own to this. And I made a video for you guys last night, and unfortunately it had a glitch, and then my mouth did not match my words, and so I had to take it down. So I'm just going to read this to you because I wrote a monologue, and it will be so much easier for me, and it will be faster for you guys to get it out there. Again, I am so grateful for each and every one of my subscribers, and I appreciate you guys because I am taking the time to read the book and watch these things on the Watts case, and plus I have followed it since August 13th when it happened because I used to sell Thrive and it just intrigued me. And then when they said it was Frederick, Colorado, that intrigued me more because that is where my ex-husband used to assault me all the time. And then when they said that her family lived in NC, I'm in NC. So I was just intrigued, and I have studied it from the beginning and went on this emotional roller coaster that we've all been on, getting pieces of information on YouTube. I didn't even know anything about YouTube. I came to YouTube to watch the polygraph test. I came to YouTube to follow this case because we had all this discovery and all this information, and so here we are. And I just wanted to say that the way that I can stay strong while reading these things is I do not want Chris to take away anything from anyone else than he already has. This is a horrible tragedy, and so I'm not going to let him steal my happiness. I've seen other YouTubers get very ill while covering this case and get a lot of hate and just get like demons attached to them, and that's not going to happen to me. And that's why I'm not writing him in jail. I probably could write him and try to entice him to write me back if this author who has never written a book before, from the Letters of Christopher, was able to bait him like she did. And so I would not do that because I don't want his evil attaching to me in any way, shape, or form. So here we go. Dr. P, The Devil Beside Me, his Chris Watts analysis. Dr. P starts out by saying if we went by Shanann's social media, we would see gorgeous, wholesome families with matching clothes and enticing smiles. And no one ever suspected it, he says. And in the beginning, it was just a missing mom and children. We all know that, right? Dr. P said that watching the no emotion on his porch sermon, he could tell that something was just way off right away. But we all felt that, right? Anyone that saw that porch confession in its real timing was like, whoa, something ain't right. So there was no desperation in his demeanor. And the fact that now we all know why, it makes sense, but some of us did know back then, but people are innocent until proven guilty. And Dr. P says Shanann called him her Prince Charming. And that's what she felt of Chris when they first met. And the family thought that Chris was sent from above. And Dr. P talks about how the police figured it out quickly, and we all saw that happen. He admits that it left us all asking how and why did he do this. Dr. P says as far as her Prince Charming goes, that the devil will come as everything that you have ever wanted. And that Prince Charming turned Shanann's dreams into a nightmare. And then usually he goes on to say, usually we are asking who in these types of cases. But in this one, we just keep asking why. And how can an average nice guy be this dark? How can we spot or look for these people? Dr. P says he is going to analyze Chris's mind. And during these episodes, we will all want to know how it is he could look the people that he loved in the face and do this while those baby girls still called him daddy. We understood the distance between him and Shanann because during the beginning of the case, because we all know that a marriage can cause rift and cause the two parties to be distant and cold and have animosity towards each other. But his lack of concern for his missing kids that he was so devastated about is what the red flags were all about. What turned him, Dr. P says? Dr. P says he was never a nice guy. He was hiding behind a mask with a secret life and secret thoughts. So he was just good at fooling people, that it was always in there. He feels that the combination of his secret life and his secret thoughts caused a slow, continuous burning to kill. Where they lived was an all-American town, and they lived in an all-American suburban home. Shanann had this huge Facebook presence that she pretended was all perfect. And Dr. P says, unfortunately, that this was all a facade. He said that, after all, they met on Facebook when Chris sent Shanann a friend request while she was struggling with lupus. Dr. P says that they dated 2 years. They had a whirlwind romance. She told Facebook in a post that Chris was the best thing that ever happened to her and everything she ever wanted. And Chris felt the same way about her in the beginning. Family and friends thought they balanced one another and were perfect opposites. Shanann liked sharing her life and being up front, and Chris loved being in the background. They were made for each other. According to a Facebook Live video, they were content, yet Chris's appearances seemed standoffish. Shanann's family thought God had sent Chris to Shanann because he doted over her. He worshipped the ground she walked on. It seemed like Chris was head over heels for Shanann. And they had 2 little girls and were pregnant with their third. It was a boy that they always had wanted. They seemed happy. They were naming the baby Nico. That was until Shanann came home August 13th around 1:30 a.m., exhausted from her direct sales trip, and was never seen alive again. Clues were immediate. Friends knew instantly something was wrong because Shanann went dark on Facebook and online, period. Nicole Atkinson knew pretty quickly in her stomach and bones Chris was not acting right, and went right into detective mode like a real good friend would and called the police. Her silence on social media was chilling. He plays Nicole Atkinson's 911 call to the police, which we have heard. Chris just acted normal and stayed at work. He actually told her friends to calm down and no police. Dr. P says people handle shock and things like this differently, but you'll see a transition always of some form from normal to something different, and Chris stayed the same throughout. No emotion, no concern, just like we saw on the porch interview. He says Chris is a psychopath, and psychopaths can't mimic empathy. They have never felt it, and they don't know how others would react, so they can't even fake it or act it out. He says he did not engage because Chris didn't even know how to. Chris knew police and friends were at his house, so this is what finally made him come home. And had he been able to fake empathy, he would have been there hours earlier. He was so casual with the cops and everyone when he got there, and just kept checking on his phone. He never yelled out going in. He even lies and says Shanann never makes beds in an immaculate house. Body cam catches him saying that they are civilly separated, but with a nervous laugh after. His micro expressions during his porch interview and on the body cam screams that he's lying. His laughing, his rocking to self-soothe, his vague deflecting answers, not using names, much to distance himself from his own crime. He uses Bella's name in past tense. There's no emotion, and his arms are folded as a barrier or protection from whatever. He looked very uncomfortable on that porch interview and actually kind of laughed when he said, quote, "I just want them back." He was awkward and obvious, and at that point, the family thought he was hiding a very dark secret. They admit that they never saw anything before this point, except the one recent time in NC when Chris was being cold and distant. But even that didn't make them suspect anything beforehand. But Sandy says he was just too nice to do all that damage. Frankie Jr. says he knew from the porch interview forward, but Sandy told Dr. P that she knew instantly. When Shanann died, she got a pierced pain to her forehead at 6:30 a.m. the morning of the murder, and that was in NC. So the time in Colorado was 4:30 a.m. when Chris got up for work daily and that morning. But even if Chris was perfect during investigation, pieces elsewhere were falling into place to charge him. Come to find out, Shanann's perfect life and her posts that she portrayed were actually her hopes and dreams of how she wished their lives were again. Because in all actuality, their savings had $9, their bank account $1,000, and the house payment was due $2,300 plus $500 insurance. The HOA payments were due and behind, and they had filed bankruptcy already before. But remember, even without body cam footage and porch sermon, statistically, 95% of the time, it's the spouse. And I can attest to that because my mother was murdered by my stepfather in 1992. Plus, the sheet was pulled off the bed and in the trash with one missing, and it was out at the work site, just left behind out in the middle of nowhere. It's not typical of Shanann, plus for her to have her car there. It had the car seats in it, her purse was there, her ID, her money, and the biggest clue of all, Shanann's cell phone that she was attached to. We all know about Nate's footage on his camera that caught Chris backing up the truck into the garage out of sight so he could load things in it. And there was no footage of his family leaving. This is where cool, calm Chris falls apart. His demeanor is sweaty, jerky, hands on his head. He makes excuses about what he loaded when he never was even asked. Plus, any other person would be watching that TV like a hawk to get the tiniest clue, and he is trying not to watch it. Both Nate and the cops see this and even communicate about it when Chris leaves the neighbor Nate's house. His house is covered with police and canines and family and friends and detectives, and he is not yelling, nor hysterical or crying, and his family has supposedly vanished. He goes back to being chill as a cucumber when he gets away from Nate's, and Nate did mention that he thought that they had split up when Shanann had went to NC for so long. This is when the public and millions of theories start spreading nationwide. He says Chris and Scott Peterson acted exactly the same way, but got caught in their own lies. He says that they both only showed remorse about getting caught, not about what they had done, just about everyone spoiling their plans. They both can't believe we are doing this to them. Even though family members said don't do that porch interview, he did anyway, and it sealed his guilt. His voice was rehearsed. He also, like Scott, thought the world would just forget like they both had. Dr. P asked, was it the baby or not having money? Was it the always being in the background? Did he resent Shanann? When exactly did this seemingly perfect marriage take such a dark turn? Was it when they felt him cold in NC and he wanted so badly to be back in Colorado? Shanann herself knew something wasn't right and reached out to her friends and said she planned on confronting him. She thought the absence of her and the girls would make his heart grow fonder and that Chris would miss them. When she was trying to rekindle in Myrtle Beach, but told friends he was weird and checked out, and when he arrived at the airport in NC and he had not seen her in weeks and he had not kissed her. It has changed. Oh, I'm sorry. He had rejected her the whole time and had become a total stranger to her. Dr. P reads Shanann's love letter she wrote right before her murder, pleading to Chris to help them get back all the things she missed about the old Chris and their relationship. And I will make a video on that letter. Dr. P says Chris failed his lie detector test, as we all know, but says Chris took it because he was a narcissist, that he thought he could fool or convince anyone of anything. He even convinced himself that he could pass it. He was very self-absorbed by thinking this and thought his story was foolproof because he was the only one left telling it. But during the lie detector, he could not control his involuntary movements during it. Little did Chris know that throughout the polygraph, the agents already knew about his secret affair with his mistress. It's only at this point that Chris finally admits he murdered Shanann and put the girls in the hatches of the tank during that same time the drone finds the sheet in the unsettled dirt. And that night they recover Shanann strangled and the girls in oil after being smothered the next morning. Why did Chris do this? What else is he hiding? What is the real timeline? It has changed so many times and supposed facts are still emerging. One of the hardest parts to hear on this Dr. P podcast was the fact that no airline would fly those baby girls to NC because of the risk of them bursting into flames. On the next Dr. P podcast, The Devil Beside Me, it's going to be about the mistress. Was she involved? What were her motives? What did she have to say? And how, again, has this case paralleled with Scott Peterson? Thank you so much for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel, and you guys have a wonderful day or evening.